agree with the comments that were quite rightly made that this is new territory in terms of actually delving into the detail of the allocation table, which you'll all recall sets out allocation of non-regulatory decision-making powers between governing body and local boards. And what's been quite rightly pointed out is that the governing body has responsibility for acquisition and disposal of land and parkland, so that's very clear. We've also got clarity that governing body's got responsible for the number and general location of all new parks and prioritisation of major upgrades. And as has also correctly been pointed out, we've got a local board responsibility for the specific location of new local parks within budget parameters agreed with the governing body. And so that's a double-barrelled component for the local board. So they've got that responsibility within agreed budget parameters. This has thrown up how you interpret that, and I can understand why the local board has thought what's its role in the process. But having looked at the issue in some depth since it was raised late on Monday evening, we're very confident that there is minimal legal risk for this body determining the matter. And that's in very broad terms because it is the council as the legal entity that's the administering body under the Reserves Act. There is a regulatory component to the decision here today under the Reserves Act, which affects the classification and declassification of reserve land, which affects the rules that apply to that land. So in the same way that this group decides to make a recommendation to the Minister in relation to special housing areas, it's got very similar elements to that, conceding that it does have a non-regulatory element and the parkland. So I think what it's thrown up is the fundamental point for you and the takeout that I want to leave is that it's legally sound for this body and quite proper to make the decision, and it would be very high legal risk to leave this decision to a local board. In terms of what it means for the future and having some discussion around how those on their face conflicting provisions of the allocation table work together is something I think that staff will need to look at and give some guidance for in the annual plan process.
Thank you, Catherine. That's very clear. Any other questions of Michael? Councillor Philip?
Not of Michael, but maybe when the staff comes through, and especially as a result of what Catherine has just said. So I'll ask that question when the staff report.
How are the questions of our local board? Just one. I'll move that the local board presentation be seconded Councillor Casey, and that they be warmly thanked. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. On to the item itself, item 13, and now we've got Clive and Nigel. Thank you and welcome both of you. We've got a presentation.
A brief one, Madam Chair.
Hi, Nigel and Rob. You're welcome. So you'll lead this, Clive?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to start proceedings, yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
So just thought it'd be useful just to start with 2 or 3 slides that just remind, I suppose, the where we are in the process. And I think most of you are now very familiar with the 3 Kings Quarry environment. So in a sense, this is, you can see at the high level that what's underlying this is a proposal to build 1,300 to 1,500 new homes. To do that, it needs a plan change. There has to be an operative planning regime to enable development to take place. So none exist under the current district plan provisions, and so Fletcher's prepared 2 proposed plan changes. One that just develop the land solely in its ownership, and one based on the land exchange with the council. And I think in the report you received, I think in about, was it May, with the work we done by Becca indicated that the exchange scheme creates a superior environment in comparison to the non-exchange scheme. So that I think there was strong evidence that the exchange scheme was far more compatible with the Three Kings plan and ended as a better result in terms of the development of this area. And I mean, the exchange plan also gives the council other things. It gives it 2 formed sports fields, a public plaza. It creates improved access into the area. So there's a number of other things that go with that as well. So in terms of the planning status, the indicative support that this committee gave to the land exchange meant that I think Fletcher's had the confidence to only proceed with the land exchange, the plan change 372 that related to the land exchange. That's been through independent commissioner hearing, and the that plan change has been approved and it's currently notified for. It's out in the objection to the process now of public notification to see any objections come in and whether it goes to the Environment Court. So, and this is just a brief reminder of the 2 schemes. So on the left is the scheme with the land exchange, and the right is the scheme that Fletcher's can carry out if it gets plan change 373 approved. So the land exchange process. So this went from your July meeting, where you were happy to proceed with the exchange. It went to an independent panel hearing of 3 people. I think they heard all the submissions over 3 days, and you've got the panel's recommendations in your agenda today. So the panel recommended the exchange with some modification to take out a piece of land immediately adjacent to the monga. So in terms of where we are today, the report in front of you allows you to seek the ministerial approval to the land exchange. There are details related to the exchange, specifications of works, the things that the Planning and Parks team would want to ensure are properly specified. And I suppose the thinking was that we'd enter into a conditional agreement executed by the Chief Executive that is subject to obviously the ministerial approval and the ultimate gazetting of the land exchange, and also of the statutory plan change process being completed. But it allows that by entering into the conditional agreement, it allows Fletcher's to get on planning the delivery of these new homes. So I guess that's the thrust, Madam Chair. I've just got, I mean, just in terms of a couple of just additional slides, it's that the upper area is the area that's been removed from the exchange. Sorry, which is it? Am I right way around? Yeah, the upper area. Yeah, with the red circle is the area that's removed from the exchange. This is the land being exchanged, and this is the current state of our reserve land. So that's the reserve land that's immediately closest to the shopping centre, and this is the other area of reserve land that's been exchanged. So it's not the most accessible and most usable open space lands that we have, and what we get potentially what we get back.
Queen Elizabeth Square.
Everything just came in at the last minute.
Well, that wasn't reserve. It's probably a different councillor, but and then we get back the 2 sports fields. So I think, Madam Chair, that's probably by way of introduction is, the valuation summary, because that was part of the evaluation process. The Reserves Act is predominantly judging the exchange. The Reserves Act process is really judging the exchange from a point of view of, I suppose, quality of amenity and a quality of exchange. But it does have a Finance Act test, and so this is an unusual thing to try and quantify, because there's many ways you can quantify the benefits or disbenefits of this exchange. So, for example, there's one analysis which is not a land valuation analysis that says we've got land that's difficult to use, and we get back to sports fields and we know the cost of providing new sports fields. So there's that way of judging the exchange. But what we did for the purposes of the Reserves Act process is if you take the land that we are putting into the exchange that Fletchers take, we've done work to estimate that they have to spend close to 15 million to make it suitable for development. And when it's suitable for development, it'll be worth approximately 17.3 million. So that investment has really gained Fletcher's 2.6 million. In comparison, we get back formed sports fields. We get back formed sports fields which, if it wasn't reserve, would probably be worth 20 million. And the formed sports fields. But we can't realise it for 20 million because it would be held as reserve, so have a much lower value. So if you look at those numbers, you maybe wonder why Fletchers are doing this exchange. Well, there's unquestionably because.
Sorry, I know that people might not disagree, but I would like a little bit of respect in this chamber, please. We have staff providing us with the information, and it's not acceptable for people to be making comments in the background. I'd really appreciate a bit of respect, thank you.
Yeah, so there's no question in our minds that Fletchers want this exchange because it benefits the overall environment and the overall attractiveness of the 13 to 1,500 homes. Have we been able to quantify the exact benefit to Fletchers of that? That's exceptionally difficult because to do that we've got to replicate an analysis of all of their costs in terms of forming their platforms and all the civil engineering works, and it would, from our perspective, would have a high cost and a high margin of error. So in the first test, if we go back to the statutory process, have we done sufficient to satisfy ourselves and for the Panuku board or the ACPL board before it to be satisfied that there's no disadvantage to the council in this exchange? And the answer is absolutely yes. That there's no question that the value of the land we receive is of greater value than the value of the land that we are putting into the exchange. So from that point of view, the board was more than happy to recommend that financial appropriateness of the transaction to the committee.
Okay. So to that end, I just want to draw members' attentions. I do have an amendment that Councillor Casey wishes to put forward, but Councillor, I have Chair's recommendations with amended for the, sorry, can we just go back? What we're recommending in light of the presentation by the staff is that we note that the Panuku Development Board has accepted the fiscal evaluation for the land exchange, and that just clarifies the issues that have been raised, which is ACPL and then Panuku Developments were the board that did the fiscal evaluations on this, and the two board meetings that were held have offered us up this advice that's in front of us. The recommendations as it stood was just a little bit misleading, and I think this just puts it absolutely clearly and explains the process that has been followed. So we've got questions. We'll just take questions initially, and then we'll move to Councillor Casey's possible amendment and then the recommendations. Councillor Casey.
Clive, how much work have you done on Richard Reid's proposal? There's no mention of it in here. There's no pretty pictures. These are Fletchers.
Yeah, Madam Chair. The Richard Reid proposal, which I think I'm not sure the committee did ask the local board to proceed with alternative designs. The problem with alternative designs is that it's very difficult to do much with designs that relate to land that we don't own and control. That in the end, I mean, if you see the scenario that Fletchers will either develop the land they own or develop the land if we agree to an exchange, then coming in with the third option to defer development of their land, to spend many more years filling the quarry, and to also involve land owned by commercial parties and the government, is probably unlikely to be accepted by Fletchers. So Fletchers will simply revert to the scheme. Look, Fletchers have said that if the council was fully committed, I mean, the next step will be to purchase the quarry from it, and then the council obviously has the full opportunity to develop it as it wishes. But that would be a very high cost proposition. So I think if you're talking about, so it's easy to engage somebody to plan the development across land that you don't own. It's another matter when you want to actually implement it. And I think the difficulty with responding to the Richard Reid scheme is that Fletchers, as they gave evidence at the hearings panel, really have no interest in pursuing it. So unless you change the land ownership to a party that wants to implement that scheme, it really doesn't go anywhere.
Thanks. So your answer is you did no work?
No, councillor, that's an unfair interpretation.
That was my question. How much work did you do?
Councillor,
The answer is
just
you did no work.
No,
Well,
that's unfair.
That's
That wasn't the
ridiculous.
answer that was given. The answer
I
that
heard the
was gi-
Fletcher's answer. I
Councillor-
didn't hear the answer from our
Councillor,
staff.
Come on.
Can we just, so far, this has been a respectful and a positive meeting, and I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you.
So I didn't get
The
an
a-
answer to my
The
question.
answer that was given, and we've now dealt with this at several Auckland Development Committee meetings, we are containing ourselves to the panel decision here. The work that was done on the Richard Reid proposal has been well canvassed, and if you notice, recommendation E, it directs staff to work with the local board to explore further opportunities that may actually progress the Richard Reid development, the Richard Reid proposal. At the moment, however, we had no ability to progress that in any way because it required us to do land exchanges on land we don't own. And there's a lot of talk around the table about us containing our work to the areas under which we have influence. We could not require people to give up land and exchange land that we had no control over. So work was done.
Second
Panel
question.
have made the decision, and that's what we're discussing today. Second question.
I didn't hear in your presentation nor in your PowerPoint anything about the precious maunga. You did mention the superior, it would be superior, we'll get superior football fields, but what are the benefits for our maunga? What are the what is it Fletcher offering that's not there already that will make it better and assist our World Heritage application for our volcanic fields? What's in there?
But I suppose, Madam Chair, what does the council want to be in there? I mean, the Fletchers own some land adjacent to the maunga, which it's seeking to develop. I think if the council has specific objectives